A plant you've seen 1,000 times can still hurt you in one afternoon. It grows beside fences and mailboxes. It stains your fingers a deep purple, and in parts of the South, older folk still call it poke sallet, a spring green that got families through hard years. But that same plant has sent children to the emergency room because its berries can look like grapes. Poison experts warn that even small amounts can trigger burning in the mouth, vomiting and severe diarrhea, sometimes within a few hours. So how did a poor man's vegetable become a modern poison warning? And why did America once put it in a can and sell it in stores? The plant is American pokeweed, Phytolacca americana. If you grew up in the Carolinas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, or Georgia, you have probably heard the argument. One side says, "My grandma ate it every spring." The other side says, "Don't touch it, don't eat it, period." Both sides are reacting to something real. Pokeweed is native to North America. In summer, it carries clusters of berries that ripen from green to glossy purple. The whole plant is loaded with chemicals that can irritate the gut and, in larger doses, affect the heart and breathing. And yet, for generations, people treated it like a seasonal ritual. The first wild green after winter, a taste of spring, a story you pass down. Here's the problem. The story got simplified. People remember the comfort but forget the danger. Or they remember the danger but forget why anyone risked it. Tonight we're going to follow pokeweed through American history, from survival food to festival symbol, and then into poison control data. And near the end, you'll see a twist. The same weed that can make you sick also became useful to modern science. But first, start where pokeweed mattered most, when you had very little choice. Long before supermarkets, native communities used pokeweed berries as a dye. Settlers learned the juice could stain cloth and paper. During the Civil War, ink was not always easy to buy. Clemson's home and garden experts note that pokeberry ink was used in many letters from that period, even though the popular rumor about the Declaration of Independence is unfounded. That purple stain once showed up in letters sent home from battle. Food was another story. In early spring, when gardens were still waking up, tender greens were precious. In parts of the South and Appalachia, people gathered what they could. Pokeweed became part of that make-do tradition. By the time the Great Depression hit, poke sallet was more than a plant. It was a symbol, a meal that cost nothing but time, a reminder that you could still feed your family. That identity stuck. In Harlan County, Kentucky, people started a poke sallet festival. The festival's own history says it was conceived at a dinner in the spring of 1955, and the first festival was held the next year. Pokeweed even went mainstream. On May 16, 1968, Tony Joe White recorded Polk Salad Annie. The song became a hit, and Elvis Presley helped make it famous. Poke sallet entered American memory as the food you pick from the fields because you have to. So if pokeweed was dangerous, why did it become normal? Because people believed there was a line, a safe use and an unsafe use, and that line was supposed to be controlled by tradition. But tradition is not a measuring tool. It cannot tell you how strong the plant is this year, in this yard, at this size, in this exact part of the plant. And that is where the modern warning begins. Vanderbilt's Poison Center says the entire plant is potentially toxic, and the root is the most toxic part. They even give a rough sense of dose. Potentially toxic amounts can be as small as half a teaspoon of root or 10 or more berries. Now picture a toddler in a backyard. The berries are shiny. They hang in clusters. They are right at eye level. In a Kentucky study of Poison Center reports from 2000 to 2019, researchers found 1,669 human exposures to pokeweed. The median age was 3 years old. Most exposures were unintentional, and berries were involved in the vast majority of cases. Most people recovered, but the symptoms were not mild for everyone. The study counted 239 adverse events, with abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea most common. And adults make mistakes too. Poison Control describes a case of a 44-year-old man who mistook pokeweed root for ginseng and ate it. Within 2 hours, he had abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, severe diarrhea, and low blood pressure. He needed hospital care. That story is the real dividing line between people who say "my grandma ate it" and people who say "do not touch it." Your grandma was not eating berries as a snack. She was not eating the root by accident. She was working inside a narrow tradition, and even poison experts say that tradition has failed at times. Vanderbilt notes that people often double boil the leaves, but also points out reports of people developing stomach symptoms even after cooking them. Medline Plus goes further. It says cooked berries and leaves can technically be eaten after being cooked twice, but this is never recommended because there is no guarantee they are safe. It says the roots should never be eaten. That is not a cultural opinion. That is a risk statement. So why does pokeweed fool people so easily? Because it wears different faces. In spring it looks like a simple green. In summer it looks like fruit. And in family stories, it looks like proof that you can survive anything. Here's the part most people do not know. Medline Plus lists 2 specific poisonous ingredients, phytolactotoxin and phytolaxygenin. These compounds can irritate the digestive system so badly that some cases include bloody diarrhea. Severe dehydration can follow. In rare situations, breathing and heart rhythm can be affected. There is no home test, no smell, no simple trick, but it gets even stranger. Scientists isolated a substance from pokeweed called pokeweed antiviral protein, often shortened to the initials PAP. Research describes it as a protein that can shut down ribosomes, the machinery cells use to make proteins. In labs, that mechanism became a tool for studying viruses and how cells work. So pokeweed sits at the edge of medicine and poison. That dual identity is exactly why the folk remedy market around pokeweed has always been risky. In modern times, the internet can revive old claims without the old caution. Someone hears the words poke root and imagines it is a harmless supplement. They do not picture half a teaspoon being enough to cause serious trouble. And then there is the cultural pressure. If you are over 50, you may have heard people say, "We ate it every spring, we never got sick." That can make you feel silly for worrying. But poison center numbers do not care about pride. They only care about what happened after someone swallowed a plant they should not have swallowed. In that Kentucky study, berries showed up again and again. That tells you modern poisonings are often about kids, mix-ups, and curiosity. Which brings us to the real question. Why are we warned not to use pokeweed? Not because nobody ever survived eating it. We are warned because the risk is unpredictable. The parts get more toxic as the plant matures, and the cost of a mistake can be a hospital visit. So, what should a family do, especially a family with grandkids running around? Recognize it and treat it like any unknown plant. Pokeberries grow on fleshy stems, not on woody vines like grapes. Keep children away from the berries and wash hands after yard work. And take the warning seriously if someone swallows it. Medline Plus says symptoms often appear within 6 hours. Poison Control advises calling the National Poison Helpline at 1-800-222-1222. Here is the irony that makes this story so American. For decades, poke sallet was not only eaten, it was sold. Writers and historians note that poke sallet greens were once commercially canned and marketed, with companies paying gatherers by the pound to bring in the raw plant. And business reporting in Arkansas says Allen Canning packed its last batch of poke sallet greens in the spring of 2000 as demand faded with the generation that grew up on it. That is a quiet ending to a loud tradition, A plant that once meant survival became something most people did not want to risk, especially when other greens were cheap and easy. But pokeweed never really left. It still grows in the same ditches and fields, and every summer it still tempts kids who cannot tell a berry from a grape. So let's close the loop. A plant you've seen 1,000 times can still hurt you in one afternoon. Pokeweed is familiar enough to feel safe and dangerous enough to deserve respect. The last surprising detail is this. The same berry juice that can make a child miserable for hours once helped a soldier write a letter home. And the same weed that causes poison control calls also helped scientists build tools for studying viruses. Old knowledge can save you, but old knowledge can also fail you when the stakes are high. If you found this fascinating, hit subscribe for more true stories hiding in plain sight.